This experience happened about 4 years ago when I was 13 years old and when I was in 7th grade. I'm about to turn 17 in September. My name is Jack Martin and I live in Delaware, Ohio with my parents and 2 little sisters. The younger sister is Becky and the older sister is Allie. Let me describe my neighborhood at the time of this experience so you can get a good sense of my surroundings. I live in a not-so-urban neighborhood due to it being relatively small at the time, but has changed a lot throughout these past 4 years. The neighborhood was halfway surrounded by trees and halfway surrounded by U.S. highways where the traffic flows and whatnot. Unlucky for me, my street was by the forested area, and I only had 5 neighbors in my street, in which they each lived about 7 to 10 blocks down from one another. What was lucky is that 2 of my best friends lived and continued to take refuge in my street. We'll call them S and A for privacy reasons. We'd usually get together on the weekends and play a couple of games of Magic or some video games together, but that has changed since this experience. It was a Friday in March and my parents were going out to dinner in the theater for the night, which placed me on babysitting duty. My 2 younger sisters were counter opposites of me, which tells you what I already had to deal with that night. Becky was 9 at the time and Allie was 11. They were your average girly girls with the usual talk being school gossip along with makeup and, as they say, stylish clothes. I was upstairs in my room playing some Halo 3 ODST and every once in a while checking on my 2 sisters. Everything was going as I expected so far. However, at 10 that night, Becky hollered up to me that someone wanted to talk to me on the phone. Flags began to rise, and upon my arrival downstairs, I scolded Becky for answering the phone because she knew she wasn't supposed to, but she claimed that it could have been Mom or Dad calling to check on us. I explained to her that our parents' names would have appeared on the caller ID, and then came her usual, "Oh, I didn't know that." I took the phone and asked her what the caller said. She replied that the caller was a man and he wanted to know if our parents were home. She then explained to the man that she was home alone and with her older sister and brother. I questioned her as to if we even knew this person and she replied, "No." Afterwards, she told me that the caller wanted to speak to me because I was the oldest. I thought maybe this person needed help or this was a misdial, so I continued the call to apologize for the wait. However, I did make a plan in case if this was a prank call, or if this was a person not to be socialized with. I collected my thoughts and calmly stated, "Who are you and do you need help?" The man on the other line replied with a raspy voice, Jack, isn't it?" The flags began to fly. He knew my name? How? "How do you know my name?" I asked him. "Trust me, I've known your family for a while, but I've never noticed that you had another sister until now," he responded. This raised a little more red flags because if he knew my family, he would definitely have known about Becky. However, I was considering at the time that he might have been an older friend that parents haven't seen in a while. He told me that he knew my parents were gone today, and when I asked him how he knew, he chuckled, "Well, they told me, of course." However, I knew my parents, and they've never told anyone about date night besides family, and I knew this guy wasn't in our family. With this in mind, I attached the pieces together and called him out on his bullcrap. Then I asked again in a more demanding tone, "How did you know my parents were going out on a date today?" His reply made my heart drop. "I'm outside your door, kid." I began to gag as I saw the shadowy outline of a person with greasy, messy, and tangled up hair at my front door. I ordered Becky to grab Allie, wherever she was, and to vacate to my parents' room, for the man intruding wouldn't likely suspect them to be hiding there. When Becky asked why she should, I pointed to the shadowy figure who was trying to open the door and yelled, "There's someone trying to break into our house." It only took one glimpse at the man, who was now doing something to the lock, processed with what I had said, to have her screaming to Allie to run to our parents' room. Now I had to be on the defensive, so I went to the kitchen and grabbed the largest steak knife to protect myself, just as I heard a click at the front door. The man had picked our front door lock and was starting to enter our house. I peered from around the kitchen counter to see him moving slowly into the entryway, wielding 2 switchblades. He asked where I was and promised not to hurt me, which I knew was a complete lie. I knew if I were to make a move or a sound, I was dead. I didn't know what to do, but that didn't matter because in some stroke of luck, I heard the barking of dogs, followed by the familiar voice of A, shouting, "What is this?" The man spun on the spot and soon made a mad dash out the door. He was soon chased by another figure, and upon second glimpse, I saw it was S. The relief I felt could not be mistaken. Those two had just saved not only my life, but my two sisters as well. Upon seeing them, I cried and thanked both of them 1,000 times, for they were truly amazing gifts from God. They hugged me and told me that they'd do anything for their best friend. I grew curious and asked how they knew that I was in trouble. They explained how they were walking their dogs and saw somebody entering my family's house with the door wide open behind them, which they thought was suspicious. When they got extremely close to the house, the dog started barking and roaring, which made A shout in suspicion. This caused the intruder to startle and made him flee the house. However, when I asked Est where he is, he stated that he chased him all the way to the tree line, where he disappeared from sight. After hearing their information, I returned inside to report my two sisters that the intruder was gone. They indeed made it to my parents' room, for we found them locked in there shaking and crying. After we told them what happened, they cheered with relief. Afterwards, we waited for my parents so we could report what happened. Upon their arrival, they were both shocked and scared to discuss our encounter, but relieved to see us all holding out very well. During the discussion, my parents agreed not to go out that much in order to keep us safe, until further neighborhood expansion could be done. My two best friends hung out with me 6 days a week in order to ensure nothing like this would ever happen again. It probably won't though, for those woods are now a thing of the past. As for the man, he is nowhere left in this place to hide from me and my best friends, in which we would do almost anything to ensure that he won't get away next time. So to the intruder 4 years ago, don't ever come anywhere near us again, or else you'll forever regret it. I'm a 22-year-old French-Canadian female from Quebec City, and last year I experienced something out of the ordinary. I was studying in Tahiti, French Polynesia, for about 3 months when I decided to take part in a 2-week field trip to New Caledonia, organized by my host university. Before joining the trip, I had little knowledge of New Caledonia and the culture of the people who live there. Many of my Tahitian friends were somehow a little uncomfortable with staying on Canucks lands due to formal tribal rivalries and magic practice, but I didn't think much of it because, as I said, I knew little about the Canuck native culture at the time, and I just thought that they were only anxious about leaving the island for the first time. The first week of the field trip was amazing. We had so much fun discovering Noumea during the day and partying at night. Then for the second week, we left the capital to travel to the center of the island, where we would stay a couple of days in the mountains in a nice camp. I shared a room with my colleague Kat from Quebec, who was part of the exchange program in Tahiti like me and entered the trip too. One night, as our group was heading back to the camp from the restaurant where we enjoyed a nice meal, I got blown away by the stars in the sky. I'd never seen so many in my life. They were so shiny and sparkling. I stopped walking to look at them, and this is when I felt something weird on my left bare foot. It was a sensation like I'd never felt before, as if something was caressing my foot with a million little needles. Then I felt a strong sting, followed by an intense rising pain to the top of my foot. I immediately let out a huge scream of pain, and tears rushed to my eyes. It was so bad. My Tahitian friend Hal ran to me and carried me to the camp, where the light shone on my foot and showed that it was already swollen like crazy. My teachers ran to me, wondering what had happened, and when they saw my foot, and it looked like a centipede bite, one of them started sucking the venom out of the wound. I couldn't stop crying. I was in so much pain, and I was angry that I didn't get the chance to see the thing that had bitten me. South Sea centipedes are poisonous, but they won't kill you. They just hurt like crazy. Another Tahitian friend of mine, Vi, came and poured a Chinese remedy on it, and I felt the pain dim down a little. There was nothing more we could do that night about this incident, so I went to sleep, hoping that the day after I would be feeling better. Kat was already sleeping when I got to bed. I managed to climb into my bunk bed and fell asleep immediately. It wasn't long that I was awoken by an uneasy feeling. I opened my eyes and saw an imposing dark figure in the right corner of the room. It was standing in the dark, just before the door. Fear invaded my body. I tried to scream to wake up Kat, but only a little squeaking noise from my part could be heard. I was totally aware of my surrendering, and I could see her sleeping in her bed, unaware of the situation. I couldn't move at all. I was paralyzed. My attention was turned towards those two red eyes that shone in the corner of the room. I couldn't see its face, but this thing, this creature, certainly was not human. I remember that its arms were so long that it could touch me without even having to move closer to my bed and leaving the dark corner of the room. It kept caressing me with his long claws that hung at the end of his large fingers. I could feel the tears running down my cheeks, and the panic was confusing my mind. It caressed me like that from head to toe for what seemed like an eternity. Then, as it was getting more violent with its touch and approaching furthermore my bed, my Tahitian friend Vi entered the room unexpected. It vanished immediately, and I sort of woke up panicking. She was only checking on me and my foot. She gave me 2 Tylenol to dim down my fever and the pain. Of course, I tried to tell her that I saw a monster in the corner of my room, and of course she did not believe me and laughed it off because, as she was saying, I was being delirious from the poisonous bite. But it felt so real. Needless to say that I didn't sleep well that night. I have never seen this entity again, but I still think of it quite often and really wonder what this supernatural creature that I saw that night in New Caledonia. I never suffered from night terrors or sleep paralysis before, and this is why I keep thinking that I encounter a creepy entity that night, and for some reason it is linked to this centipede bite. I have been doing some research on the significance of centipedes in the Kanak culture, as well as the Tahitian culture, but nothing matches the description of the event that night. Since this encounter, I've been calling centipedes demon creatures, and till this day, I have never walked barefoot on grass again. The story I am about to tell you is an experience I had when my mom was pregnant with my second brother. This happened when I was 16 and my first brother, let's call him Keenan, was 9. It's about what we Filipinos call aswang. An aswang is a vampire-like witch ghoul in Filipino mythology. According to legend, they love to eat fetuses and unbaptized children. They use their big wings to go on roofs or trees to watch their prey, which are pregnant women. Once these women are asleep, they will dig a hole through the roof or try to get in through the window. They will use their very long tongue to penetrate on a woman's womb and suck the life out of her baby. Me and Keenan shared a bedroom which is just beside my parents' bedroom. Outside my parents' bedroom is our water tank. If you lie on their bed, you will see the window in an open space because of the water tank, and beside it is the roof of our kitchen. If someone is to spy on us, all they need to do is climb on the roof, go to the area where the kitchen is, and they will see inside my parents' bedroom. My dad is out with friends that night. It's just me, my pregnant mom, and Keenan in the house. We were already sleeping when I heard my mom scream. I woke and checked on her. She said she just had a bad dream and asked me to stay in her bedroom for a while until she sleeps again. I agreed and lay beside her. The night was still. There was an eerie silence. I couldn't pinpoint it, but I felt like there was something wrong. I think I hear something, I said to myself. I remember hearing labored breathing. It's like someone is hiking up the mountains and catching his breath. I remember that I can hear it really close to our house, in fact, close to our bedroom. After a few seconds, the sound becomes faint, and then it became loud again. It's like someone is running, or flying in circles, and hearing it coming from the roof. Labored breathing, that's what I heard all night. My mom is sleeping soundly beside me. I don't think she is aware of what's going on. I was very afraid. I don't know what I was hearing. I know that it's not a cat. I never heard my cat breathe like this. I was thinking that maybe it's an aswang. I remember my mom told me that aswangs don't like the smell of garlic, so I got all the garlic from our kitchen and placed it on my mom's window. I remember looking at the roof and looked carefully to see if there's someone there. Maybe I would see the aswang sitting on the roof and look at my mom. I didn't see anything. My mom woke up again. She said she was having trouble sleeping. We started to hear the same labored breathing again. My mom asked me to turn on the lights in my brother's bedroom so that the Aswang will know that we're awake. She doesn't want to turn on the lights on her own bedroom because she's thinking that maybe the Aswang will see her. I prayed so hard that night. It was the scariest sound I had ever heard. At around 12 midnight, the sound stopped, and we could no longer hear anything. I checked on Keenan to see if he's okay, and then me and my mom drifted off to sleep. I woke up to the sound of my mom screaming. I remember that it's 3 a.m. She said that she dreamed of a lady with black hair, black dress with flower print. The lady is in front of our gate and asking if she can touch my mom's abdomen and feel the baby inside. She refused several times, but the lady kept on insisting to touch her abdomen. My mom decided to get inside her house and leave the lady outside. But when she turned, the lady was standing right in front of her with her hands reaching to my mom's tummy, and my mother screamed. I calmed her down and prayed for my father to come home. After a few minutes, my dad came home and I went back to our room and slept. The next day, me and my mom woke up like nothing happened. We were not talking about the incident that happened the night before, as we were both thinking that maybe it was just our imagination due to the nightmares experienced by my mom. While we were eating breakfast, Keenan woke up and came into our kitchen. He spoke to me and my mom, and what he said gave us goosebumps. "Good morning, Mom. How are you? Why did you lie beside me last night? Why didn't you sleep in your room?" "What are you talking about? I didn't go to your room last night." "Yes, you did. You lied down beside me and I said, 'Hi, Mama,' but you didn't respond. I could only see your back, so I thought maybe you were sleeping already, then just went back to sleep. You were even wearing your black dress with flowers on it." "The dress on top of the ironing board?" "Yeah, that one." We went silent. My 9-year-old brother, who was sleeping soundly last night and is therefore not aware of the events that happened last night, saw a woman sleep beside him wearing the same dress that my mom saw the lady in her dreams wear. I know it's not me he saw because I don't own a black dress with flowers printed on it. I have always believed in the paranormal and I love listening to stories about it, but I have never experienced something before until this happened. My uncle died 1 year ago. He was sleeping on his couch when he had a heart attack. He was young and everybody in my family loved him, so it got pretty hard for us when he died. I still miss him very much. So this happened a few weeks ago. I was lying on the couch in the living room and watching a movie with my mom. I fell asleep and woke up at around 2 a.m. I turned on the TV and went to the bathroom to brush my teeth. I walked back to the living room and laid down on the couch to watch TV and then fell asleep again. I started dreaming about my uncle. He was walking towards my house and up the stairs to talk to me about something. Suddenly, I woke up with a wired feeling in my body, almost like I was afraid and felt something or someone was coming. I was going to turn around to see what it was when my whole body just froze. Something was telling me not to turn around or open my eyes. But for some reason I opened my eyes and turned around. And there he was. I couldn't see his face because he was just black. It was a white and blue light around him. I closed my eyes as fast as I could so he couldn't see that I noticed him, but it was too late. I felt his arm come closer to mine. He wanted to communicate with me, but I was too scared. Then I heard my mom come out of her room and my uncle disappeared. I had never been so relieved in my life. The next day, I was home alone. I could feel myself falling asleep when I got the same feeling again. I could feel him coming up the stairs again and opened my eyes as fast as I could. I looked towards the stairs when I saw a shadow disappear. I know it was him. I can feel him. The same thing happened when I was sleeping in my room. I knew that he is here with me, but I don't know what he wants. Maybe he is confused, or maybe he is just watching over me and wants to talk to me, but I'm too afraid to find out. This is a series of events that happened over many years of my life. I live in a small neighborhood. I have lived here all my life and I still live here today. I'm currently a teenager and don't have to live here much longer. The area of the neighborhood where I live has a main road in front of my house and a creek behind my house. When I get over the creek, there is a back alley that my insane neighbor lives in. Let's call my neighbors James, Allison, and Jeff. Those are not their actual names. Let's call my mom and grandma Brianna and Susan, not actual names. My mom Brianna was friends with James, Allison, and Jeff. They also do drugs and sell them to people. My neighbors, not my mom. James was her boyfriend at the time. James is actually the father of my youngest sister. She lived with James, while my sister and I lived with my grandma, Susan. My mom was abused by James, but she kept running back to him. She eventually left him for good. James started dating Allison after he and my mom broke up. My mom stopped talking to James, Allison, and Jeff. They started talking crap about my mother. I will tell more about this later in the story. A quick thing about me, I have anxiety and other problems with my mental health. I'm doing okay and I'm coping well. I have anxiety because of them. Now here's on to the story. A few years after Brianna and James broke up, I was outside with my mom and she was talking to her friend. I have seen James walking outside my house with a baseball bat. 10-year-old me said to my mom, "Mom, I've seen James walking around with a baseball bat." My mom says to me, "It's okay, he won't hurt you." We stayed outside and talked to my mom's friend until she had to leave. Later that night, my mom went to go see other friends. They came to our house and we were all talking for a while. My sister and I went inside and we watched television. I actually remember the exact show we were watching at the time, SpongeBob SquarePants. I was 10 at the time. My grandma Susan was sitting there watching us. I heard yelling outside. My mom's friend rushed her youngest daughter inside. My grandma rushed outside. My mom's friend's daughter was wailing. My sister and I were trying to calm her down. What was going on outside was that James, Jeff, and Allison were yelling at one of my mom's friends, named Jessica, and was threatening my family and wanting to hurt them. I tried to stay calm as I heard the screaming outside. The screaming went on for a long time. My mom and grandma went back inside. As I was going to try to sleep that night, I kept having nightmares about them coming and hurting my family. I kept on checking on the door to make sure it's locked, which is a tendency I still do today. We called the cops, but they never came. When they call the cops, though, they are right there on the spot. The cops around here are very corrupt. This story happened when I was 13. I was at school at the time. I was there hanging out with my friends. Then I got called to the office. I went to the office. I was nervous because I thought I was in trouble about something. There was a lady that I didn't know. She asked me to come with her. I went into a room and she asked me questions about my home life. I found out that she was from CPS and someone called them on my mom. I answered her questions and then I went back to my friends. I ended up telling one of them what happened and he told me that everything would be okay. I was nervous all the way home and then I told my mom what happened. She freaked out. Everything was okay in the end though. And then this story happened to me last year. I was in my room. It was late at night. I was on my iPad reading a book. One of my mom's friends was staying with us for a few days. I heard yelling outside. I was alarmed. Then I heard glass shatter. I dropped my iPad on my bed and ran out of that room. I thought someone was trying to break in. I screamed bloody murder all the way into the living room. I was frozen in fear. I couldn't move. The only movement was my breathing and my shaking from fright. I cried and I was shaking. I didn't know that the window was broke until someone looked at the damage. I stayed up and I was still shaking, and I somehow fell asleep. Because of that, I couldn't sleep without my dogs for months. I was scared to be near that window, and I still have emotional distress about the whole thing. This made me even more paranoid about them, and I'm still nervous to this day. We called the cops, and they never came. We were trying to get a court case against them for the window. We got a case, but they never told us the date, and then the case never happened. We are still trying to get them in court, and the cops are just so corrupt around here, at least in my mind. This story happened sometime last month. It didn't really involve us that much. My mom was outside. Our neighbors were outside yelling insults at her. There was something on fire up the road. I honestly think they did it. My mom went to see what was up, and someone's house was on fire. While she was gone, I clutched a hunting knife and I tried to call my friend. He didn't answer. I was crying. My mom came home. I still kept the knife with me, and I ended up falling asleep with the knife nearby me. As I've been writing this, something else happened. There was this woman who also lived behind me. My stupid druggy neighbors gave her something. My mom thinks it's meth. I personally think that it's some kind of hallucinogenic. My mom thinks that they slipped or something, kind of like roofies. I honestly agree with her on that theory. The cops came instantly and they arrested the woman. I honestly don't know about my neighbor and society as a whole anymore. I really needed to get this off my chest. I've been keeping this kind of stuff from most people. It's kind of a relief to get this story out there. I'll post updates in the comments. I really hope that nothing else bad happens. I really hope that everything will be okay. And this has actually given me anxiety while writing this. If you have any advice, please place them in the comments, and thank you so much for reading. So this isn't really scary for other people, but it is for me. When I was younger, I would tend to sleepwalk a lot to the point where I locked myself out of my house for about 2 hours. As I got older though, it just kind of slowed down. I wasn't sleepwalking anymore. I'd stopped for about 2 years before coming back. Then after the 2 years, it would have happened every once in a while. I would talk to things that weren't there, or start looking for something that I didn't have, or see things in places that shouldn't be. But then I'd wake up and everything was back to normal. But lately, it's gotten worse. About an hour ago, I had finally fallen asleep after being up until 1 a.m. After a while, I remember seeing someone in the window, so I jump up and tell them to leave, and I run to my parents' room panicking, telling them what happened. My dad shoots up and runs to the door with me to follow behind him. We look out to see that no one was in the yard, and if there was, we would have seen them. At this point, I'm shaking and my heart is beating like crazy. After a while, I calm down to think about it, but I can't remember getting up or seeing my dad get up. I just remember standing at the window screaming at someone, and the next minute I'm trying to explain what happened. Sorry if this is a mess. I'm still pretty shaken up after this, as I can't explain what happened other than I was half awake in an almost half awake, half asleep state where I see things that aren't there. The whole reason putting this out here is because I want to see if anyone else has any experiences or has any clue as to what might be happening. When I was 9 or 10, my brother and sister and I decided it would be a great idea to play with a Ouija board, because there was really nothing else for us to do, and I have never touched one and refused to be in the house with one because of what happened. I remember it was summer and we were outside in the garage when my sister pulled out the Ouija board and suggested we play. Of course, we all agreed as we thought it was cool at the time. After an hour of talking to random things, thinking everyone else is moving the planchette, we were told we were talking to my friend's dog that had passed away. And so, like idiots, we asked if there was anyone else there because the spirit said it followed my friend around. What it said next was not what we were expecting. It said that I was being followed by a 12-year-old boy who called himself Taya. He told us that his dad was mad at him and threw him in the fire and followed me around to protect me. Fast forward many years later and I'm now 15 and doing online school. In the middle of doing my work in my room with my door closed, I started to hear a knocking sound on my wall. It sounded like someone was on the other side of the wall, knocking up and down the wall. I called and asked my mom if she was home and banging on the wall, but she told me that no one should be home other than me. It was strange, but I just played it off as the house shifting because it was winter and my house shifts all the time. A few months later, I'm at the kitchen table with my mom doing my work, and my brother walks by and tells us he's going to his room or something and walks up the stairs, and we see him do this. A few seconds later, I look up and see a boy with blonde hair and blue eyes peeking at me from back the hallway. At first I thought it was my brother, until we came down from upstairs. I was confused and asked my mom if she saw the person looking around the corner a few seconds ago. She told me she had no idea what I was talking about and just let it go. I saw this boy once more at my dad's house, running from one side of the hallway to the other. No one else had seen him, and no one knows what I am talking about. I have also seen this figure. It's a tall black thing, and it's very slim with fingers that don't end. They just fade into non-existence. Whenever I see this thing, I get paralyzed with fear, and no matter how much I want to move, I just can't. And the more I try to move, the stronger the sense of fear gets. No one has ever seen anything like this in my family but me, and has no clue what I am talking about. I have also been woken up in the middle of the night to the sound of whispering in my room. I have woken my sister up in her sleep to tell her they're here, and then started talking to things right in front of her. I was dead asleep and don't remember saying anything like this. When I am home alone, I feel things around me that can change my mood, and I've had things push things off of shelves for no reason. The funny thing is that when I say stop, it stops. It would really help if someone had some answers, because I have almost drove off the road because I have seen things standing in the middle of the road. Hey friends, thanks for listening. Be sure to subscribe and click that notification bell to be alerted of all future narrations. If you got a story, be sure to submit them to my subreddit, r/letsreadofficial, and give and receive feedback from the community, and maybe even hear it featured here on the channel. And grab early access to all future narrations for just $1 a month on Patreon, and maybe even pick up some Let's Read merch on Spreadshirt, links in the bio. Thanks so much, friends, and I'll see you again soon.